Hello and welcome to Behind the Mask, Eating Disorders Unveiled. I am so excited to finally have Bryan Bixler back filming with us. He's been doing so many things, so many exciting things, and been really busy. So do you want to kind of update people on what's been going on with
It's
you?
great to be back. I think our last episode was right before Christmas time.
Yeah.
When I was leaving for the Dr. Oz show.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to go on there for their 5th anniversary and kind of check in with the clients that we had worked with the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an awesome experience. Got to see them, see how well they're doing. And then I just recently got a position with Hotel California by the Sea in Newport Beach. And we have plans to eventually open an eating disorder treatment center exclusively for men. So it'll be the first of its kind.
That's so exciting. And so I know I'm happy for you. I watched the episode that you were on for Dr. Oz and I got a little emotional. I was like, oh, it's so good. So I'm just excited to be filming.
It's great to be back, and I think we have a great show today. Really looking forward to.
We have author and body image and nutrition coach. Recovery coach. Robyn Cruz, and she wrote Making Peace with Your Plate. And she's here, and she's going to tell us a little about her story, and we're just excited to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me be here and to share my story, I suffered from an eating disorder from the age of 11 through to 29. As I remember it, at 11 years old, my mum had asked us to go and have dinner together around the table, and she told us what the doctor had instructed her to tell us, and that was that she was dying. And that really catapulted me into another world. They say that a third of people that suffer from eating disorders will also suffer from trauma, and that will trigger their eating disorder, and that was certainly my case. From that night, as I recall, and who knows, because I was 11 years old, the next day I had very much calculated how much food I was going to take, how much food I was going to buy from the money that my mom had given me for lunch. And that was the first time I really made that calculated decision of how can I get as much food as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And that really numbed my being. That really numbed me from the world and numbed me from the trauma. Yeah. And that's really what I needed at that time. And I always say, if eating disorders could talk, at that time, it would have said, shh, I got you. I've got you, Later on, I think if eating disorders could talk and they would tell the truth, they would have said to me, I'm going to take you so far away from your dreams that you won't even remember them,
Yeah.
Or they would have said, I'm going to take you down to the deepest, darkest depths of despair, that when I'm done with you, you're either going to be dead or you're going to want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really that kind of powerful sense of takeover. As I said, I suffered from the age of 11 through to 29, and nothing really changed. It was this cycle of binging and purging and starving. And it just went, and it just got worse. And at the beginning, honestly, it really felt like I was looking after myself, that I had found a way to really cope with life. Life always seemed really harsh for me. And later on, when I discovered that I was buying something that wasn't true, I just felt trapped. Like I really believed that there was nothing that I could do to get out of my eating disorder. And then one day, I was an actress in Australia, and at the time I'd come over for what they call pilot season, and I was at this stranger's house that a friend had suggested that I go to, and I was in their bathroom and I was on the floor, and I just remember thinking, I can't do this, and I will die, And then I had this moment of clarity where it was like, I can say no to the demands of the eating disorder. I could actually say no. I can't do anything. I'm too exhausted. I don't know what to do. I don't know what recovery even looks like. But I can say no to it. And that was really my start. What if I just say no?
That seems like it was a really powerful moment for you.
Uh-huh.
And I know when we talked earlier, I really liked how you described your eating disorder and eating disorders as having multiple personalities because of that cycle. And it seemed like that moment of clarity is where you kind of started to, consider recovery or consider that you needed help?
Yeah, I became willing to have recovery. And as shocking as this sounds to people with eating disorders, I became willing to be what the eating disorder said that I was going to be. For example, in my case, it said that you were going to be ugly, fat, and worthless. And without me, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
You're nothing. You're going to be the size of a house. People are going to laugh at you. I mean, just brutal. And I went to myself, I'd rather be that than to die. And that's really where I had to get to. That's not what happened, but I had to be willing for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because that was a part of me taking my power back. That was my first start. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back.
One thing about eating disorders, though, denial is so strong. And, initially it takes the ability to identify what thoughts those are that are negative or lies that it says. How did you come to realize that these thoughts are the ones you're not going to believe? Typically, I know with me, I lived in denial for probably about 9 years, and my family really confronted me. And it was really difficult to break through that denial because I didn't really see anything wrong with what I was doing.
Right.
I was not able to identify the eating disorder because I didn't really know what an eating disorder was.
So I would love to answer that, but for you, when you got to that stage of wanting recovery, what did you sense in yourself? Did you see the separation?
Absolutely. I hated it with a passion, but I was in that place, what I call powerlessness. No matter what I tried, I was unable to change the patterns I had developed over time. And that's exactly what, I believe most people experience is that powerlessness, that they want to change. I wanted to change with every fiber of my body, wake up every morning thinking, okay, today's going to be different. And I do the same thing.
Absolutely. And the sense of being trapped is a very painful feeling. And I relate to that a lot because I think most of my eating disorder days became about feeling trapped. But going back to how did we separate ourselves, when you wanted recovery, you knew the separation. You hated it, you see.
Correct. But I didn't get there on my own. That's what I'm saying. How did you break through that barrier? Because for me, it took other people. My family, my loved ones, my friends.
So first I became willing. I separated myself. I became willing to want recovery. And with that, I did a few things. I did what was called gather the troops.
And that's a chapter in the book.
Yeah, that's a chapter in the book. Gathering the troops means many things. First of all, we sought support through people that we feel non-judged by, unpressured by. We sought those people that we can talk about our eating disorder and the pain of it and feel vulnerable and not feel judged. Very important, because there are people in our lives and in everybody's lives that will judge us and we feel unsafe. And for me, those people also made me feel like it was my fault that I was, that kind of relationship.
That's almost a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't go to those people. Okay. So that's the first thing. We set ourselves up for success. Gathering the troops of those people that don't judge us. That's one thing. Certified eating disorder specialist. Always seeking out those specialists that are really trained to identify the eating disorders, because eating disorders are secretive. We can go into a therapy office and we can want to keep that secret because we're feeling vulnerable. So we don't want to keep that. We need somebody that's specialized in that field so that they can identify that and work with those. We can't do it by ourselves. I certainly didn't do my recovery by myself. Absolutely not.
Did you go into a treatment program, or did you have outside specialists work with you?
I had outside specialists, and I surrounded myself with people that were like-minded that also wanted recovery. And that was the way. it was important for me to really be surrounded by people that were trying to do the same thing.
So would that
And that
include
was
meetings or?
absolutely. And I, I don't endorse any kind of meetings or any specific thing, because it's very different to the individual. For me, at the beginning, I went to 12-step meetings. Now I go to different meetings, so there's meetings online, there's support groups online. Anita does a great support group, Eating Disorder Anonymous, that talks about milestones, embracing our power within recovery, all those things. And then the other thing that I really did, that I encourage everybody to do, is really start looking at ways that make recovery worth it. Like, what happens when I own my story? I feel, okay, so I have an eating disorder. I feel great shame, but now it's out and I'm trying to get recovery. And who am I anyway? Who am I outside of my illness? So what does that look like to me? What makes me tick?
Almost like finding a purpose for yourself and identifying who you are.
Yeah, who am I other than my illness? Because I am not my illness. That doesn't define me. So
that's actually a very difficult point to reach, though, for many people. And people deep in recovery still struggle with who they are without that disease they live with for so many years.
Absolutely.
And that I often say that's the beginning of your journey and the beginning of the rest of your life, discovering who you are and what your purpose is.
And isn't that fun? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm afraid of heights. But if you put me on a rope and a cord that spins to the other side of the room, I'm exhilarated. Who knew? I didn't know that. Like, in recovery, I get to decide what I don't like and what I do like. And a lot of the times discovering what I don't like brings me to what I do like.
Right.
No,
I totally agree. It's like a new beginning.
Yeah.
It's starting a new life, experiencing new things.
Yeah.
For my last 4 years, I feel like it's been a totally new experience. Like I'm experiencing things for the first time.
And sometimes they feel good, and sometimes they feel uncomfortable. Right. And we get to really experience more of what life is. We don't get eating disorder free and become immune to life, which is I think that's a miss. I think people think that that's. I know I certainly did. I thought that once I got recovery from my eating disorder, that life would be amazing.
Yeah.
But really what our recovery from eating disorder means is that we get to partake in our life and show up for it.
And it's finding another way to cope, not using the eating disorder without the eating disorder, because I know a lot of times, a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the stories I hear, it's a way of coping with pain, with trauma, with something that's gone on, and it's finding another way to actually feel feelings and cope with different things that happen in life, like you said.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I would say, I was the same mindset. I was living in a hell, and I thought once I was free of that, life would be so much easier. And I used to look at people and think, God, I wish I could just have a normal life, so it wasn't so difficult. But normal life on its own terms is difficult.
Yes.
And learning how to truly feel, which what your disease suppresses, and learning how to deal with those feelings, that's what living's all about. Yeah. And it's as you said, it's amazing in some aspects, but it's also very difficult in many ways.
And the truth is that we don't have any control of our life. Yeah. For me, I used eating disorder I wanted to control my body in order to control the outside world.
Yes.
And the truth is that we never had any control.
Right.
We never do. No one does. No one's that powerful. We don't have control in what happens in life. We don't have control of the weather. We don't have control about what other people do. We just can show up.
And that's the deception of an eating disorder. You actually think you're in control of that. It takes control of you. I mean, you become a slave.
Yeah,
and exactly. I call it slavery. So
high five on that
one. For you, I know you said that you're a body image coach. That's one of the things I find really difficult with a lot of my clients, is getting past the idea that if they look a certain way, if they achieve some certain goal, that it kind of connects with happiness or worth and feeling loved. How do you really tackle the body image piece? Because that's one of the things I hear is so hard to let go of.
I would have to second that. That's probably the most common thing I get approached about is how do I deal with the body image?
It's a tough one, because we're living in a culture that has expectations on the way that we look. We're kind of breeded that way. You know, and we were speaking earlier that it's also in our DNA. Nancy Etkoff, from the author of Survival of the Prettiest, talks about it's in our DNA as human beings to want to be beautiful. And we really have a skewed vision of what that is. I think the first thing is to rebuild the relationship with food in our body. When we do that and we start to honor our body, which is a very long process, as we spoke about, when we start to explore the power of our bodies, what it can do for us, and how, I'll give this example. As women, our bodies tell us what we need in order to keep our baby. You know, we have a baby inside of us. That's our capabilities. Our body is that intelligent to allow a baby to form. That is a beautiful gift of our body. We essentially want to broaden our definition of beautiful. And so what are those elements that broaden it? If we're doing everything that we can for our body, if we're honoring our body and our body is at that weight, that is a beautiful thing, right? So but how do we broaden that definition if culture is saying that we have to be, you know, whatever it is in order to fit in and to be more lovable? That's what our culture is saying, which is a lie in itself. But how do we broaden that? Well, there's things that we do. We explore our value system. We explore our heritage. Like for me, I come from a Maltese family. We've always had beautiful round hips. Beautiful hips. I hold beautiful hips. I will never be up and down. Does that make me less worthy? No, that makes me beautiful in my own right. I hold those hips. I explore what that gives me. That gives me sensuality. That makes me a woman. I own that. I honor that.
I like how you said exploring the value system and even looking to things like culture or heritage to see where you can kind of redefine beauty for yourself or challenge kind of just those messages that people get from whatever outside sources that they need to look a certain way to achieve happiness or status or whatever it is.
But we've also seen those people that catch our eye that, you know, I spent so much of my time trying to fit in to be what the media said that I should be. What about those women that you find that when black is in, they're wearing pink and they're groomed in a way that gives them, you know, exactly who they are? That's good. That's beautiful, right? Imagine if we took that time to explore what we bring, our heritage and our values, and what we like in other people. Like what attributes we like, and we held them and we created a package and we used that to define our beautiful and our insides. That's beautiful. People stand out not because they look the same. They stand out because they're unique.
Yeah.
Do you think it has a lot to do with self-esteem? I mean, regardless of what you look on the outside, until you actually address what's going on inside, it's really difficult for someone to accept themselves in any appearance they have.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I've dealt with people that, you know, might want to lose weight, and I'd say, you know, you can lose 25 pounds and you're still not going to be happy with who you are.
Absolutely. Well, they say there's classic traits for those with eating disorders, those of us, you know, low self-esteem. It's a big deal. Perfectionism.
Yeah.
We have to work on that. I think doing esteemable acts that make us feel good about ourselves, we can work on that. Low self-esteem is something that I continue to work on.
Right. Like I said, it's a journey.
Yeah, it's
a lifetime journey.
You know?
It's like an everyday practice, you know, like exercise or something. You kind of have to, like we were talking about, I think before, you have to do certain things every day sometimes. Work on self-esteem or challenge the value system to kind of maintain what makes you feel good or what's important to you.
Absolutely. And we can't really, you know, you put those traits, but you can't underestimate what, again, you know, what our culture brings and what our culture breeds. You know, we're so busy trying to achieve something to prove ourselves, to get somewhere. There's always something to better ourselves, which means that we're lacking. That's what that message is. We're lacking. And we'll always come from lacking. We're always trying to better ourselves, and we're never good enough.
Yeah.
What if we just said, I'm enough?
A lot of people might be happy.
Who am I to say that, that I'm not enough? I'm enough.
So back to your journey.
Mm-hmm.
You said you surrounded yourself with people that want recovery.
Uh-huh.
You had a team that worked with you.
Uh-huh.
How, early on when I was trying to do that on more, I wasn't in a treatment setting.
Yeah.
I'd leave the office and I'd go home and I'd be back in my environment, and it was difficult for me to translate that, what we talk about, into action.
Absolutely.
How did you do that without the complete structured support of, say, a treatment center?
Well, I want to be really clear that journey is not right for everybody. If I could have afforded treatment and I knew of treatment back then, it would have been a very different story. I would have done everything that I could to be in a contained environment so I could have got the tools that I needed, because that probably would have made my recovery in the early days a lot less messier. So I do encourage treatment. Some people can't have treatment, financial reasons.
I was there. Yeah, I spent 8 years. That's why the question I ask is, I was dying. I knew I was dying. I couldn't get help for 8 years. Even though I knew I was dying, I couldn't change my behavior, regardless of how much, structural support I had without that 24/7 structure. Right. So that's where I come from. Where did you find the ability to break through on that? Was it a gradual process? I mean, behaviors, like you said, it's a cycle you can't escape. How did you break that cycle without that support?
So I did have support. It was just in a different way.
Yeah.
So I had all the support that I needed. I had friends around me that were like ammunition to my eating disorder. I had family that were backing me, that were not enabling. Very important. I had meetings that I went to daily. Sometimes I went to 2 meetings daily. I went to any lengths to get my recovery, the same as I went to any length to hide my eating disorder.
So you shifted that energy.
Yes, because I had no choice.
Right.
I didn't have the treatment center available to me. I had no choice. And so I did what I did. I was in survival mode. It was either that or die.
Wait, how long until you kind of really started to see the shift of everything that you were learning and utilizing in the meetings and with all your support? Not how long, but when did you start to feel that shift of, okay, this is working for me, or I'm challenging this and feeling good about it? And
it's funny because in early recovery, you eating disorders are not about the food, but in early recovery, it kind of is about the food. Kind of is about the relationship with the food. So let's honor that. Let's really be real about that. That's how it is. And so I worked with people to do the best that I could to get my structured approach up, to really challenge the eating. And once I really started to trust in the process more than I trusted in my eating disorder, then I really got it. And that was, I think, about 9 months in. My recovery was not perfect. I haven't binged or purged for over 11 years. And that's a great deal. That's not everybody's story.
I don't think I've ever heard of a perfect recovery.
No. Yeah. But I think if people are hearing this and they want their recovery to be perfect, which is a mistake. I always say that I go against the perfectionism because that's what my recovery is. Yeah.
I know you, in your book, you do talk about the tier system as far as the nutritional aspect. If you want to maybe briefly talk about your approach with how you view nutrition and making peace with your plate. I know you brought this on the flash. It's so cool. How do you kind of go about that in the book and in your life?
So the nutritional healing, a 3-tier approach, is of 3 tiers, and effectively they're stepping stones to each tier. I really honor what they call intuitive approach, the mindful approach to eating. I do not believe that when we're in eating disorder, in my case, when I was in eating disorder, I couldn't go from disordered eating into listening to my body. Why? Because I had spent so many years perfecting how to ignore it.
Yeah.
So, and plus in early recovery, I had that voice of the eating disorder. Blah, 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 blah. So I couldn't differentiate between that, you know? So when I really got recovery, and I created this approach from hindsight, from my struggles, my trials, of what worked for me. And so for me, I felt the importance of creating a structure, which is tier one. Tier one is the structured approach. Creating a structure where I could remove the good and bad labeling, but have guidelines to the amount that we had to eat and the categories in which we had to eat. Created an approach that appeased the eating disorder, because we all know eating disorders like structure, but also created a safety net for me so that I could explore without feeling like I was going to eat the world, because that's what my eating disorder said that would happen. So I really needed that structure. Also, I really needed this structure, and we spoke about this before, to restore my mind so that I could begin to think straight, so that I could work on all that trauma and the depression and the anxiety that was underlying my eating disorder, and also restore myself physically so that I could start to do things and really, so the structured approach is very important. That is where we begin to explore our body signals. Now, that didn't happen for me until about 9 months into a year. In fact, in our book, we talk about staying on the structured approach for a year at least. And that structured approach always is a foundation. So, for example, if I was feeling funny with my food, I would go back to that structured approach. That's a foundation. That's a great approach to always stick to. If you never left the structured approach, success.
Yeah.
Success.
Totally agree. And, and I used to tell people, no matter what's going on in my life, I know how to do that one thing. I know how to follow my meal plan.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if I do that, everything else is going to work out.
Right.
So
for me, the hard leap is going from that structured approach to beginning to really own and explore our body's signals and begin to trust our body, that our body is going to tell us when we're hungry, it's going to tell us when we're full, and that we're really in tune with that. Takes time to restore that, right? Yeah. But once we finally get there, I can go into the intuitive eating, the mindful approach. Tier 2 is the mindful approach in our book. I can start to be mindful. And if I get scared, I go straight back to my structured approach. Yeah. If I feel like something's happening and I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to go back to my structured approach. But I'm going to start exploring. I'm going to explore what my body is saying. And some days I'll feel safe enough to explore it, and some days I won't. And that's okay. And then over time, like say a couple of years into that, when I know that I can eat when I'm hungry and I can stop when I'm full, I know that the stories aren't true, that I'm going to be the size of a house, because I've been doing it for a long time. We can go to the self-care approach, and that's the tier 3. Now, I will be very clear and upfront with you. You can do that after about 3 years. For me, I didn't do it for my 10th year. That's when I started to be self-care approach. Self-care approach means that I can eat when I'm hungry, I can stop when I'm full. I know that a French fry or a packet of French fries and a burger at one meal is not going to tip me over the edge, and I am not dictated by the way that my body looks, and I am not dictated by the voice of the eating disorder. Then I can start to question, well, I can eat what I want, but what's going to bring me optimum health? So, for example, love coffee, love it, right? Hates me. Am I willing to do, I can either say to myself, well, I can have that drink and I will get a dopamine spike and I'll feel great for, a couple of hours, and then I'm going to crash. And I'm able to say now, because I'm not in deprivation, do I really want to do that? So I'm making a choice from optimum health. Yeah. My body wants French fries. I love French fries. I'm not going to go without them. They don't alter my optimum health. They may for some, not for me. So I'm making choices from optimum health. I'm able to be in control of, what fuels me. But it's not about weight. It's not about diet. Some people don't get there. but that doesn't mean that we can't try to.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that approach. In fact, through my process, that was actually part of it. We call meal challenges, and you become comfortable with what you're doing. We remember the first time I went to Five Guys, and 9 months into treatment, I got lightheaded, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't." It's a
like
burgers and joints.
Yes.
I was told burgers and hot dogs, and I was like, I got racing heart.
Anxiety.
But 6 months into it, on my fifth time there, I was actually enjoying it and realizing, it's not going to hurt me. I could do this. And, we did dessert challenges, and you learn to trust that your body knows exactly what it needs.
Right. And then we have to deal with the excitement too about the food, right? Because then that can often invite the eating disorder back in as well. When we enjoy something, you shouldn't be enjoying that.
Yeah, you don't deserve that.
Again, that's another thing I think takes practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that little voice. Right?
I like the little voices you do. Well, I just want to thank you for coming here. I know we've spoken, and, I was really excited to have you on to tell your story, but also because, I'm not sure because, I want to really delve into this and read it. And I have a feeling, especially because I work with so many clients who are struggling so much with and I talk with so many with the hopelessness of, is recovery even possible for me? And how will I get past these thoughts? Or how will I learn to have a healthy relationship with food? And I think you and Bryan, and bringing people on who have had these stories to share and do something to give back to the community is so powerful, because there is hope. It is possible. And it's just the beginning, like you talk about.
That's right. It's been awesome having you here.
Thank you so much.
It's really interesting for me, because I've been really discouraged by what I'm finding out there in the treatment world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to come across someone who's created this approach, which is very similar to something I really believe in, and sort of created it on your own, through your own experience.
Thank you.
So it's awesome.
I would love to end in my concept of what full recovery is, if that's okay.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
definitely. So
let me find it. Did you want to say something about that?
as far as full recovery, it's not something I ever really thought I believed in. 2 years ago, I met Jenny Schaefer, and she talked about the concept of recovered, which means, eating disorder is gone. And when you live with an eating disorder for, 2 decades, it's difficult to even imagine that being possible. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty far into recovery where it doesn't really affect my life much, but I still, now that I've been introduced to the concept, I have some sense of hope, but it's almost difficult for me to even think that's possible, given, what my brain does with, all the knowledge I've had over the years.
Right.
So I'd love to hear what you're...
I would love to. And where's the camera? I want to say to people out there that even if you don't feel that recovery from eating disorder is possible, I want you to know that it is, and that your life is waiting for you. And this is what I define as full recovery. For me, full recovery means that my daily activities are no longer dictated by my body or my food intake. It means that as a woman in today's society, and a man, I am still susceptible to the media and my peers' judgment, but they no longer define me. It means that my true self, not the words of my eating disorder, prevails.
I love that. It's powerful. Where can people find, do you have a website, or where can they find the book?
So Amazon.com is the best place to go. You can probably find that at Barnes & Nobles or your local bookstore. Mm-hmm. Amazon's a great way to get it these days. And you can go to my website if you want to hear more about me and my services, and that is robyncruze.com. That's ROBYNCRUZE.com.
Perfect. And you have a website.
I do have a website up and running, and it's BRYANBIXLER.com. Has all our previous episodes from Behind the Mask, as well as all my appearances on the Dr. Oz show. So
for any, touching in to end with this, for anybody out there who doesn't believe recovery is possible, you have 2 shining examples right here and lots of information. So thank you again,
Robyn,
for being here, and so excited to have you back, Bryan, filming.
Thank you.
Bye.